It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon. School had just finished. Teenagers spilled into the streets in small groups, laughing, shoving, talking about homework and weekend plans. Among them was a 16-year-old boy, quiet, polite, known more for his smile than for trouble. He wasn't in a gang. He wasn't looking for a fight. He was simply walking home. But in a matter of seconds, his life would be gone. Not because of who he was, but because of a mistaken identity and a weapon that should never have been in teenage hands. That day would change his family forever. And it would spark a national conversation about knife crime, online sales, and how easy it is for deadly weapons to reach children. This is not just one boy's story. It's a warning. Witnesses later said it happened fast. Too fast. A group of boys approached. Words were exchanged. Confusion. Tension. Then, sudden violence. A long-bladed weapon was pulled out. People froze. Some ran. Some screamed. The teenager was stabbed multiple times before anyone could react. The attackers fled, leaving shock and silence behind them. Paramedics fought to save him. Police sealed the area. Parents nearby held their children close. But despite every effort, the boy died from his injuries. He had been mistaken for someone else. He was not the intended target. A life taken over nothing, and with a weapon bought online. As detectives began their investigation, one question stood out. How did teenagers get such a dangerous blade? The answer led them to an online purchase. The weapon, large, aggressive in design, often marketed with dramatic names, had been sold through the internet. Age checks had failed. No real barrier had stopped the sale. What was designed, marketed, and sold as a collectible or novelty had become a murder weapon in a child's hand. The case exposed a disturbing truth. Buying certain knives online could be easier than buying alcohol. The house was quiet that evening, the kind of ordinary quiet no one ever thinks twice about. In the kitchen, dinner plates were still on the counter. A phone charger lay plugged in near the sofa, waiting. Upstairs, his bedroom door was half open. Shoes kicked off near the bed. A hoodie draped over a chair. Signs of a life mid-motion, not finished. His family thought he was just late. Maybe talking with friends. Maybe missed the bus. Maybe his phone battery died. Normal excuses. Normal thoughts. Because nothing prepares a parent for the truth. Then came the knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just firm. Official. When his mother opened the door, she saw two police officers. Hats off. Faces tight with the kind of expression that says everything before words even come. Time slowed. She later said she already knew, before they spoke. They asked to come inside. The living room suddenly felt too small. The air too heavy. Every second stretched painfully as they explained there had been an incident, that her son had been seriously injured, that paramedics had tried. Tried. That word would echo in her mind forever. She screamed his name. Over and over. As if saying it loudly enough could bring him back through the door. His father stood frozen, one hand on the wall for support, staring at nothing. Shock doesn't look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like silence. Like a person leaving their own body just to survive the moment. A sibling cried in confusion, not fully understanding, only knowing something terrible had happened. The officers spoke gently. Slowly. But no softness could cushion the blow. Their son wasn't coming home. In the days that followed, the house changed. Not physically, but emotionally. His room became a place no one wanted to enter, yet no one could avoid. His scent still on his clothes. His messages still on phones. His laughter trapped in old videos. His mother would later say the hardest moment wasn't the knock. It was the next morning, when she woke up for a split second believing it had all been a nightmare. And then remembering. A chair at the table now empty. A voice gone from the hallway. A future erased in minutes. Not just a victim of crime. A son. Loved. Missed. Forever 16. The courtroom was silent in a way that feels heavy, almost suffocating. Wooden benches. Pale walls. The quiet shuffle of papers. This was the place where answers were supposed to come, where the law would speak for a life that no longer could. His family sat together in the front row. Holding hands. Not looking at anyone. In front of them, the people responsible were led into the room. Teenagers. Heads lowered. Surrounded by security. The contrast was painful. On one side, a family destroyed. On the other, young faces who had made choices they could never undo. The prosecution laid out the timeline, the weapon, the confrontation, the confusion, the moment violence replaced thought. CCTV clips. Witness statements. Forensic details. Cold facts. But behind every legal term was something human. A heartbeat that stopped. A future that vanished. The defense spoke of fear. Of immaturity. Of panic. Of boys who never imagined things would go this far. But one truth hung in the air, impossible to escape. A knife was carried. A knife was used. A boy was killed. When the victim's mother gave her statement, the room shifted. Her voice shook, but she didn't look away. She didn't talk about revenge. She talked about birthdays that would never come. About his laugh. About the way he said, "good night." About the empty space at home that no sentence could fill. Even the judge paused before delivering the verdict. Guilty. The word echoed, final and absolute. Sentences were handed down. Years in prison. Lives redirected onto dark paths. Some people in the courtroom cried. Others stared ahead, numb. Justice, in legal terms, had been served. But justice didn't sound like relief. It sounded like the end of one chapter, and the beginning of a lifetime of grief. As the family left the building, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But they walked past in silence. Because no headline, no verdict, no prison term could return what they had lost. The court had closed the case. But for them, the sentence was forever. Grief can break people. Or it can move them. In the weeks after the trial, the family lived in a fog, flowers at the door, messages from strangers, his photos shared across social media. Support poured in, but so did a painful realization. Their son wasn't the only one. Other parents had stood in the same spot. Other bedrooms had gone silent. Other families knew the sound of that knock on the door. And that's when something shifted. His mother said later, "If we stay quiet, nothing changes." So they spoke. The first interview was the hardest. Sitting under bright lights, microphones close, trying to turn unbearable pain into words the world could understand. She held up his photo. Not as a victim. But as a boy. A child. A person. They began meeting campaigners. Police representatives. Community leaders. Eventually, lawmakers. Each conversation carried the same message. Why was a weapon like this so easy for children to get? They pushed for tougher rules on online knife sales. Stronger age verification. Clearer responsibility for sellers. Real consequences for companies that ignored the risks. They visited schools, too. Standing in assembly halls filled with teenagers the same age as their son had been. His father would tell them, voice steady but eyes heavy, one moment. One decision. That's all it takes. Students listened differently when the story wasn't statistics, but a real name, a real face, a real family standing in front of them. Their grief became a voice. A voice that reached parliament debates, news headlines, national conversations. They never said laws would erase their pain. But if change could save even one life, then their son's story would not end only in tragedy. It would become a warning. A lesson. A reason something finally changed. And in that purpose, they found the smallest piece of light in the darkest chapter of their lives. Knife crime is often shown in numbers. Statistics. Charts. Percentages. But numbers don't show bedrooms that stay untouched. They don't show mothers replaying the last conversation in their heads. They don't show friends saving a contact in their phone they can never call again. Behind every number is a name. This teenager's story is not just about one tragic afternoon. It's about fear spreading among young people. The belief that carrying a knife means safety, when in reality it only makes tragedy more likely. Many teenagers who carry weapons say the same thing. I didn't plan to use it. I just had it in case. But in moments of panic, anger, or confusion, just in case becomes irreversible. Easy access makes it worse. When dangerous weapons can be bought with a few clicks, the distance between thought and action becomes dangerously small. This story also shows something else. Violence doesn't only destroy one life. It damages families. Traumatizes witnesses. Impacts communities. Even the young people who commit these acts carry consequences that follow them forever. Prison sentences create more lost futures. More broken homes. That's why prevention matters as much as punishment. Education. Stronger controls. Community support. Early intervention. Because the goal isn't only justice after death. It's stopping the next funeral. As his family continues speaking out, they don't want sympathy alone. They want awareness. Responsibility. Change. They want young people to understand that a knife does not give power, it multiplies risk. And they want adults, parents, sellers, lawmakers, communities, to recognize their role too. This teenager should be planning his future. Choosing a career. Laughing with friends. Instead, he is remembered in photos. In memories. In a campaign to make sure fewer parents hear that knock on the door. One life lost. A lesson written in pain. The question that remains for all of us is simple. How many more stories will it take before carrying a knife stops feeling normal, and starts feeling unthinkable?